Hey guys, welcome back to the Midnight Paint and Body channel. In this video, we're going to be repairing the rusty wheel arches in an F-150 pickup. So on this video today, we're going to be getting back into kind of the meat and potatoes of what I do around here in my shop and kind of most of what I do on my channel, the old rust repair. So our patient today is, in this case, it is a 2006 F-150 with the typical rusty wheel arches. Now, we see this on all these trucks, whether you're into Ford, Dodge, Chevy, they all do it. They're, they all, around here, anywhere, anyway, in Canada, I mean, any one of these trucks, they hit around 10 years old and they start to rust through. That's pretty typical. In this case, this is actually a pretty nice low mileage pickup. The rest of the truck's in good shape. It's super solid. Now, it's funny, I do, if you watch my videos, I've done wheel arch repair videos and I do work on these trucks all the time, but typically GM and Dodge, I work on them all the time. I don't work on a lot of Fords. So this is going to be the same premise as putting wheel arches in any other truck, which I've done videos on, but I just figured being a little more specific to the Ford guys, we'd try that one. And I'm going to answer my telephone, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Forget what I was talking about. Sometimes running a business gets in the way of making YouTube videos. So here's what we're working on. So now, we see this all the time, and I know lots of guys say, oh, it's just surface rust, it's not rusted through. But by the time you see this, it is rusted through. Now, typically the way you can tell, now say you see these bubbles here, now the paint isn't broken. So that tells you it is for sure from the inside. This is probably full of water from the inside. Okay, well there's no water in there right now, because it's been super hot and dry out, but so now you can see that kind of black staining. So this is penetrated. That is moisture coming through from the inside. And, we could start poking at this and it will for sure have holes, but so there you can see, it is, it's rusted through. In this case, our inner panels seem to be super solid. Now, this truck isn't as rusty as a lot of them I see, but like I said, it's a pretty low mileage, fairly clean truck. So I think it's the low mileage that's probably saving it from where an 06 pickup would usually be. So what we're going to be installing, and I have a little disclaimer on this one, is these wheel arch panels. I'm going to set up the camera so you guys can see. Now, I'm not recommending you do it this way, but I ordered the wrong parts. It was totally my screw up. This is an 06. For some reason, I had it in my head when I ordered them, it was a 2010. So I ordered the 09 and up style panels. But I'll show you guys. So they are identical except for this body line. But that's not going to be a problem because I will typically cut these around here. Depending on the rust, if this thing was rusted way up high, we would need the proper panels. But in this case, I'm pretty certain that by the time we cut above this body line, we're going to be into clean metal, which is what we want. So I'm going to be trimming these panels back anyway. So these are going to be just fine. They fit the body perfectly, like I said, other than they've got a different body line, which, again, my screw up, it happens. I would rather just work with what I have than have to reorder parts all over again, because, that just sets me back. So, with all that jibber jabber out of the way, I'm going to start just taking this apart a little bit. We'll start doing some trimming and I'll show you guys what's going to be next. So I've trimmed back my panel here to roughly what I figure I'm going to need. So what we're going to do next, just going to kind of set her in place there. I'm going to take a Sharpie and just give us kind of a rough mark. Now, that is not going to be our cut mark. The reason I'm doing that is that I'm going to cut probably an inch below it, and then we'll trim from there. The reason I'm doing that is just we don't know exactly where we're going to yet, and we might do the cut and butt where we'll cut through both panels so we have a perfect butt weld. But for now, we're just going to trim this back and kind of see what we're working with. And something I want to mention here too, guys, before you go slicing and dicing. Now, there is an inside panel. Up high, you're probably not going to touch it, but getting down close and getting into here, you don't want to go cutting through the inner panel. So just cut super shallow, or else you're going to be repairing that inner. Unless you're replacing the inner, which on a rustier truck we would for sure be doing. But in this case, I'm pretty sure we're going to be salvaging it. So I always like to show this part. So this is what makes everything rust. It's all this dirt that gets trapped in there, stays wet. They've got this kind of seam sealer kind of crap in there. I'm not sure why they put this stuff in. It's like an anti-vibration thing. Lots of guys like to say that, oh, they rust out because they've got this glue or this foam in there. All the manufacturers do it. I don't think it's, I mean, this stuff obviously does trap some stuff in there, but I don't think that's really the cause. Now, you'll hear me say it on every one of these videos, but when you wash your truck, once a year, take your tail lights out, shoot the pressure washer into here, and try and clean all this crap out. Now, I know even when I wash my own truck, you know, spraying up in the wheel wells is fine, but it doesn't get this stuff out. If you get up underneath and kind of point through that way, you can also rinse this stuff out with water, same from the front. As you can see, if you come up through from the bottom, kind of from the inside, you can get a lot of this dirt and stuff out of there, but taking the taillights out, I think, is your best bet. You know, once a year or so, it's 2 screws, it's not a big deal, and it can make your trucks last a lot longer. But yeah, I mean, even if it's already a bit rusty, it doesn't hurt to get all that dirt out of there. It's going to stop it from getting a lot worse. So anyway, I'm going to finish cleaning this out a bit. We'll move on to the next step. So you'd think I've done enough of these trucks by now that I would know that they always need inner panels. You know, even when I reach in there and I think, oh yeah, they're solid, solid, solid. As soon as I got poking at that, it's just falling apart. So the rest actually seems like it might be okay. So probably just do a quick patch on it. We're not getting super carried away on this job. But the next thing we need to do is get this lip off of the this part of the old box side. So I'm going to trim this back. I'm going to see if we can drill out some of these spot welds and get this strip of metal off without destroying the inner. So I've gone around the lip here and found the spot welds. Hopefully you can see in there with the light. So I've just taken a drill and just drilled the outside panel. You don't want to drill all the way through because you don't want a hole in that inner panel. Now I'm just going to take the air chisel and just kind of finish buzzing that off of there. this is clearly not a real high-end repair on this inner panel. I basically just plug welded a patch over top of that hole to stop stuff from being able to get through. Not necessarily a bad thing that does. Sometimes that'll actually flush this out, having some holes here, but we don't want to have, yeah, we'll do what we can to keep it sealed up. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just take some rust preventative paint and coat this inner panel. That's something I always do on these to make them last a little longer. And once this is all coated, I'll actually take some seam sealer and go around that patch before we weld the wheel arch in. So now with the inner panel all treated, I guess you'd say, basically just painted. I mean, it's, like I said, it's definitely going to make it last longer. You know, the water will run off of that now when it gets in there rather than soaking into that old rust. And so I've gone around the perimeter and punched some holes. Obviously you don't need a hole punch for that, you can drill them. Hole punched a whole lot nicer though. So I've trimmed back the panel to where I'm happy with how it's going to be. I'm going to clamp it in place and basically start welding. Now, I do every one of these different. Sometimes I will take my grinder, cut through both panels and have that perfect butt match. Sometimes I choose to leave a little overlap. I don't know why I do it one way or another, to be honest. Sometimes it just feels right. I typically will prefer the butt weld, but I've actually been doing more like this lately. I mean, that little bit of overlap, it does leave an area in there for moisture to get in, but as long as you're able to get up in there and seal that up, and I like to use that just some really good rust paint, and I'll just paint the heck out of it inside so that the moisture can't get in there in between. So before I weld that on there, I'm just going to take some weld through primer like I've done on this lip and just go around this perimeter so that once this is overlapped that little bit, it doesn't have that bare metal underneath. So now you can see, oops, where my overlap is here on this inner. I'm actually going to trim this off basically like that. So I'll be welding down here and there, but that's going to bring this inner lip in tight against that inner wheelhouse. So there's what I was kind of talking about there. So I've trimmed this back so we're nice and tight now to this inner panel. So we'll just weld around that perimeter. And now I'm going to just take just a few self-tapping screws and just put them around this outside perimeter just to keep this tight. And it is kind of, yeah, it's lifting just a hair away from the metal. So yeah, we'll just put a few self-tappers in there to keep that tight and we will be ready to start welding. And there we are. So I put a few self-tappers in just to hold that super tight to the panel. You can also go around and hold, you know, like a wooden hammer handle or something against it as you do some tack welds. So what I'm gonna do, I'm basically gonna work my way around with a lot of small welds, a lot of cooling time, and then, well, I usually use a blowgun to cool everything down. Then I'll go around again. You can't ever do these in a continuous weld or any big long welds, or you're gonna warp the heck out of your panel. So take your time. It's this is the time consuming part, so it's a lot of welding. A lot of cooling, a lot of waiting, but I'm gonna get started. So there she is, all cleaned up. So at this point, I'm gonna go around it one last time, just check for any little pinholes or anything that looks like it could be porous, and just hit a few little spots with the welder, and then we'll grind that back again, and then we'll be ready to start applying some body filler. Now, typically on these jobs, I would now, I'd get this finished up welding, I'll jump over to the other side, weld it in, then do the body work all at the same time, but I don't have the other panel yet. When I ordered them last week, it showed one in stock and one available by transfer, which usually is just an extra day. But I don't have it, and it turns out today is a holiday. It's the stat for Canada Day, which was Saturday. Today is Monday. When you're self-employed, you lose track of these things. When no one's paying you to take a long weekend, you don't typically take them, and you kind of lose track of when the stats are. So I can't even phone to find out where the panel is. But anyway, hopefully it'll be here tomorrow and I can carry on. But for now, we'll get the body work started on this side. Okay, body filler time. So I always start just with some short strand fiberglass filler over the welds. Just seals everything up real nice. So as you can see, this is gonna require only a small amount of filler. So we'll put this fiberglass filler on, sand it off, and then we'll put some regular body filler over top of that and finish her off. So here's a look at our fiberglass filler taken down. So as you can see, it's there's no real build there. It's just kind of filling over the welds. Now, something you want to keep in mind when you take this stuff down, take it right down. You don't want to have your fiberglass filler high and then put your plastic body filler on top, because as you take your body filler down and you start hitting this fiberglass, they don't really blend well together because the fiberglass filler is harder, so they won't block out together nicely. You'll end up with kind of highs and lows because the plastic filler sands easier than this stuff. So just kind of keep that in mind. Try and take it down to where you're just going to be now spreading a light coat of body filler over it to smooth everything out. So that's what I'm going to do now. Mix up a little bit of filler and coat this again. So there's our body filler on. I'm going to start knocking it off with the round block, which in this case is actually a rolled-up magazine, but it works really good. This may look like a lot of body filler, but it's really not. It's just basically just a skim coat. So there you are, guys. One side kind of knocked out, ready for primer. So basically I blocked everything. I knocked the top off with 40 grit, then moved to 80 grit, then moved to 100 grit, and I've got everything sanded nice and smooth, so it all feels good. So if you kind of follow it along, it just shows you spend a little extra time fitting the panel, spend a lot of extra time doing the welding, and you can do these with very little body filler. So this was just a skim coat of the green fiberglass filler to fill over the welds, and then just a skim coat of body fillers. So from there, we'll give her some urethane primer and block it out for paint. So hopefully I get the panel for the other side tomorrow, and then I'll get that welded up, and I'll bring you guys back when we're ready to put some primer on it. Well guys, jumped ahead a little bit, got primer on this bedside. Unfortunately, my panel for the other side, it's already Wednesday today. I'm not going to have that panel till Friday, which when you're kind of running a small business with one person like myself, that really throws a wrench into things. So, but hopefully if I get it Friday, I'll work all weekend again and I'll still kind of be on track, because I got another job coming in on Monday, and when you're one guy, you can't work on two things at once. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and prep up this panel so I can have everything as far ahead as possible, so when I get the other side, I can get it welded in, and then, yeah, that'll just speed things up that little bit. So anyway, I'll bring you guys back periodically. I'm not going to take you through the prep process, but I'm just going to be blocking out this primer, getting this panel ready to paint, and then work on something else until I get parts. So I'll keep you posted. So there's the panel all prepped up, pretty straightforward. Didn't bother recording that part of the process. But now this thing's going to sit until I get the panel for the other side. So hopefully by Friday. So for now, I'm going to go back over the other side of the shop and work on the 70 Dodge Charger, which is another video I'm also working on, so I'll be recording over there. So finally in the booth with the F150. It's actually been about a week since I filmed on this last. Turned out my panel that I was waiting on, I didn't have until Tuesday. So yeah, it was late Tuesday before I finally got back on this. It's Thursday now. This job should have been in and out last week, but what do you do? I got another job in and out in the meantime. Luckily the customer had another vehicle, wasn't too concerned, but I've got the paint mixed. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing painted up. Bring you guys back to see it when it's all done and shiny and ready to go. So here she is, all out of the booth and put together, washed up, ready for the customer. So as you can see, it's like it never happened. So, you know, still a pretty decent looking old truck. So it was worth getting that rust fixed up, keep her alive a little longer. So I think the customer will be happy with that. So I hope this helps somebody out with the projects. Like I say, guys, you know, if you've got if you've got some basic welding skills and access to a welder and a few tools and a place to do it, you know, I think this is something, you know, a guy could pull off on their own if you're just trying to get a little more life out of an old pickup. You know, even if it's not perfect, that's all right. You know, have a hand at doing it yourself, because not everyone has the bucks to have this kind of stuff done all the time, but I think it's well worth it for these trucks as they get a little older. With the price of new ones, it's definitely worth spending a couple dollars on them when you know you've got a decent truck. So as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you do find the videos helpful, if you enjoy the videos, you know, you can help me out by just hit the like and the subscribe and leave a comment on the video. I always appreciate that. That keeps the old YouTube algorithms going. So anyway, thanks guys. Hope to see you on the next one.